Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Wednesday, November the 14th, 2018. And I'm joined again by my good friends, Lisa Flamino Resch and BZ Rieger. And tonight we're going to talk about throwing off your programming and how that really is a superpower. Um, I think actually recognizing that we are programmed and conditioned is the first step to uh, claiming. For me, it was the very first step in claiming my own superpower. Just that, first of all, was huge. Um, because the first time I heard someone suggest that, I was like, no, not me. I'm not programmed. No,
Just rewind the video and you can see exactly.
Yeah.
A
Famous
telltale
last
sign.
words. Yeah, famous last words. Not only that, but I still recognize that there's still lots of programming and conditioning up in here.
Yeah.
Not that I'm very happy about that, but I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, we didn't used to call it programming and conditioning. Just was, everybody else, and there was seemed like a very few of us who were either had wiped the sleep out of our eyes or were absolutely friggin' nuts, and and so the reason that this was funny when this packet of visuals and stuff and geometry came in, it was kind of like a walk down memory lane of the, I guess, kind of cool memories, but kind of odd memories, because it really is a superpower, and I use that with a little bit of playfulness, because there really aren't any such thing as superpowers. We already have all of these things and we can turn them on, and so anyways, that's a whole other thing, but people like to call it that, so okay. And the reason that is because we're not missing anything, and we came to this planet at this moment for an important reason, many reasons, with all of the training and at least the beginning tech that we needed to do all of that. So I'll just share a little bit for me what it was like. It was, I'd go through the day and I would experience something or read something or be in a conversation with someone, and this was when I was little, so 8, 9, 10 kind of a thing. And in between just being 8, 9, 10 and doing whatever you're doing, and wrapped up in the whole thing and school and all that kind of stuff, I'd have moments that I would go, well, that doesn't seem right, or there seems something odd, and I'd spend a lot of time looking at things kind of with my head cocked, because I was trying to see, was there something about my vision or my hearing that was wrong, because that's where you go to. I was always wrong, so might as well have been something else that was wrong, that was making me experience something completely different, that's how it seemed, than anybody else. Because if I would give voice to the thoughts about that, I'd get jumped on, stomped on, Shh. Shh. um, so, and then I would go back to, you know, whatever was going on, but it would happen more and more often. And so I'm describing it in my own way, but I can tell you there's a whole lot of people, and luckily there's a whole ton more of us now, but there was a whole lot of people who would know exactly what I was talking about, who would feel and who felt those same kinds of things. So in that respect, and it doesn't matter whether it was way back then or, you know, 2 minutes ago, but it really is a superpower. And now we call it programming because that's actually what it is. But what I want to describe for a moment is what happens. So the totality of you want to jump in, Sheila?
Well, I wondered if before you begin to do that, if we could take a moment, because there are not okay, so I'm feeling this is not going to be like immediate, but I do feel that eventually there will be folks that have come into this energetic envelope and will not quite grasp what we mean by that programming and conditioning. So I wanted to, if you wouldn't mind, if we kind of take a moment and state what it is exactly we're speaking in regards to. For me, I'd like to say that everything, I had a lot of experiences like you relate, BZ, of being a kid, being told, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Sit down, be quiet. Don't say that. You couldn't possibly have seen that. You didn't hear that. You don't know what you're talking about. Now, the difference I've noticed between myself and the two of you is that both of you knew that you guys had correct information and were sort of guided yourselves, allowed you to be guided in a particular way. Me, on the other hand, I didn't have that. And so, or I didn't allow myself to have that, let's say it that way. And so whatever that was really went way underground for a long time. But it is not only that for me, it's not, whenever I speak in regards to programming and conditioning, that's not the only thing. Everything from, you know, looking outside of ourselves in regards to authority, in regards to health. We're taught this from a very early age. Go to a policeman if you're lost. Don't trust yourself. You know, doctors know best. Teachers will guide you. You know, we're taught at every, and I very clearly now have been able to see where I did my own fair share of programming and conditioning my own child in regards to all of that. You know, our schooling systems, public schooling systems is another form of programming and conditioning. We do it to each other. This has happened for eons upon eons, and that is the programming and conditioning that we're speaking of. It's even deeper than that, but I wanted to, if it was all right, to just put that out there before we continued on, BZ. So thank you.
Yeah. Lisa, did you want to add anything to that part?
That was really good, what Sheila said there. I think we've been told who we are since we got here. And everything that stems from that conversation is the programming and conditioning, in my opinion.
Right. Rather than allowing, I see it now. I didn't see it then, but rather than allowing home and what we are to unfold, rather than, you know, because for lifetime and memorial, we thought that little being that was coming in, they didn't know anything. We got to teach them because they don't know anything. Guess what? They know more than you.
Well, we got to teach them, all right. But it wasn't from a benign.
Yeah, so they don't turn around and teach us.
Right. Well, and the programming too it's in every system, structure, every level, every layer. It's not just about all of your own beingness. It's about the world and religion and school and government, everything. I mean, just think of anything and yep, that too. That one, yep, that too. Yep, that too. Everything.
Yes.
And
every single thing.
One of the reasons that, just as an example for those who are playing with this, one of the reasons that medical or health recommendations change so fast and so often and seem to swing so wildly, or you have fad diets, or you have things about, could be the senses, or it could be about, our our Darwinistic tendencies to, evolve. And Lucy, meaning I'm talking about what, Altheopillicus, not gonna pronounce it right, but Lucy from the cave woman and all that kind of stuff. So the reason for that is because when there were certain signals, tides, and flows of energy frequencies throughout the millennium that would come and wake pockets up, and those pockets would join together. And this is not just I'm not just talking in the last 30, 40, 50, 100 years. I'm talking, the dark ages and this and that, I mean, just pick an age, pick a spot, keep going. It's all marketing. It's all the same. Or it's actually sales to. And the reason that it had to be flipped was so quickly, so radically, was to give you something shiny, something new to talk about, get the people who were on the front lines of easily going along with things, get them talking in that, so that they could then have the collective of the societal, norms, mores, and all that, shun those who were waking up. So that's why we're all complicit in it. Anyway, so that's just barely scratching the surface of what the programming and conditioning is, but it's a whole bunch more than that, but that's a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for letting me do that, because I felt like for some reason that might be important, at least somewhere down the line, that we just kind of touch on it at the very least.
Yeah.
So now you were going to go to just, how, well, I kind of interrupted you, so I apologize for that. But I hope I just now felt like, oh boy, that was not exactly probably the best thing to do.
Well, I'll laugh for a minute. Maybe it'll come back to me.
I like the thought of that.
I know it's not all flowing in, but I believe where I was going was what happens when you're wherever you are in this moment. I could be talking about someone in this moment, because everybody keeps waking up. You're unlimited, and you're eternal. So kind of layers keep coming, and expansion keeps happening. So when a good example is that when something, you encounter something, however that happens, and you look at it, feel it, read it, speak it, whatever it is, and within your being, you notice there's a ping about it. So it's like however that works for each individual being. So it might be a real head scratcher, or literally and figuratively, or it may not feel good, or I've noticed with me recently, if something comes up that's under the guise of something that's more expanded, but it's really a lurking, very, very covert lurking kind of a thing. It'll make me feel all of a sudden, in a very acute way, very agitated and seriously annoyed, and like I need to just pull the throttle back and come to a full stop. So if I'm motoring along, that means that everything's going to go kind of a thing.
Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a question about that, because
okay.
I feel as though I'm grokking, or I'll say picking up what you're laying down there, but I want to make sure. Because you said that something can come along that purports to be or looks as though it is an expanded or an expansive thing, and then you know, at first blush, and then at looking a little closer, you're finding that it's not. Did I pick that up right?
Yeah, and actually, I don't even have to go as far as looking a little closer. I just will encounter something, however that happens, and I'm encountering it, like I'm encountering this conversation, and then all of a sudden, this acute sense of everything I just described comes up in me.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
It's visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on the
I call that
outside chance I was wanting to stay asleep, but that would get me. Pay attention to this. So, and luckily it doesn't happen all that often, because usually I can sense, spot, see it coming a mile off, but there are occasional ones that sneak up. But that I'm still trying to get back to. I don't know. We'll have to go on, because I'm not.
Well, I'm sorry. You were doing a fabulous job there. I just had to ask that question because you were speaking on encountering something that, because I've had that come up for me recently, and that's why I wanted to, I look at and view anything that I have any sort of a visceral reaction to, and I use those words specifically. Reaction, yes, of course, always, but visceral, something that really, just, I don't know, there's a part of me that's, okay, gets in my craw, okay? Let's call it that, all right? Gets right up in there in my craw a little bit, and I'm like, how can this be? Especially, and then because you said expanded, this has happened to me a bit lately. I'll have a thought or something that comes across, and is maybe supposed to be from an expansive place, person, site, whatever, and I'm like, and so if there's a visceral reaction to that, I want to look at that for myself. It has nothing to do with the other being. It has something to do within me.
Exactly.
And that has happened a lot for me recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that is more programming and conditioning that is coming up for review, or asking me to examine that, and and I do. I just don't know that I get to the bottom of it exactly. Is that what you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting you like that, BC.
Well, what I was talking about was that acute reaction that or it's kind of a chain reaction that I have, which I think is pretty funny. The reason I think it's funny is because the acute reaction, that chain reaction that comes up is to say that's not what it's purporting to be, and it's a program. And the first couple times it happened, I don't know, maybe the first time was a year and a half ago, and I laughed. I thought, subtle much? I mean, clearly there's a reason why the whistles, the bells, the fire hose is washing me down. And which prompted a whole discussion, with me on, am I demonstrating things and I'm that clueless? I need to, so anyways, that's kind of a side note there. But no, to answer your question, that is to flag, and I can't answer the question, well, why in particular that it happens. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's acute. So it could be that it's a very short step. Whatever it is, there's a short step for me to take, and if I take the step, it gets me in a much deeper, darker hot water quicker, and then if I stop, I don't know. But since I pay attention and it's really obvious that there's not someplace, and I don't need to know all the why either, because that much effort is being expended to blow the whistle on. It's like, okay.
Let's just stop then.
Yeah. But what I wanted to, and it's frustrating because I can't quite, I can't even get back my own description of how it would felt to me, but throwing off your programming is a superpower, and you can feel. So what I wanted to talk about is you can feel it, that superpower waking up within you, and you might feel it where there's depending on how you walk through the world, how you sense through the world, how you experience the world. You may notice that it sounds, even if it isn't necessarily auditory, but if that's a way that you kind of perceive on a high ratio, that it sounds different. It just sounds different. And that could be just someone talking about, well, the school lunch today is X, Y, and Z, or, we're going to a meeting this afternoon and there's going to be, the head of sales and this, that, and the other thing. And there's something in there that's being said that catches your attention. So what's happening, I think the simple way, since I can't get it back to describe it, is that what you're kind of routinely experiencing, what you were routinely in the habit of doing and thinking and feeling about just about anything, and you encounter something, and this something at that moment wants to wake up and kind of ping some of the programming in you, it's almost like there's two yous that are experiencing the same thing in two distinctly different ways. And if you can have an awareness around that and you look at them, the you that is the more programmed and conditioned you, that's more the shell, that's more the superficial, that's more the kind of go along to get along, even though you may not until a minute ago thought that that's what you were doing. the colors will not be as bright, even if you just see things in what you think is, plain colors. And the information will kind of be cursory, like if you ask a question and someone pats you on the head and says, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it, kind of a thing. It has that feel to it. And the other you will be noticing, we've talked about this before, in the swimming pool kind of analogy, where there's lots of lanes and people are swimming, and all of a sudden all that action just pauses, and the lane in front of you is crystal clear. It's like someone really sharpened the focus on the camera. And not only that, but that you went from just a really inexpensive lens to this really powerful lens with incredible optics in it. And so that lane, now if you're looking, just to use again the metaphor of the lane, the white buoys that are the lane markers, they're just crystal white. They're just brilliantly white. And the color of the water in the pool and the reflections clear. I mean, everything is so crystal clear. And so that's one of the things that the core of who you are in the shirt, right? Even if you haven't, had conversations, notice that you've had conversations with your higher self and soul, will really come through and highlight for you. To begin with, it happens in a finger snap where and I guess that's what I was doing when I would look at things, kind of, tilt my head, because part of it would see something very shallow. It's almost like it was just a real quick summary, and and most of it was blah blah blah. Don't worry about it. It's great, cool. And the rest was very detailed and very focused, but it was just a finger snap. And as I paid attention to the finger snap of the clarity and really looked at it, so I could actually, how would I say this? If it's a video, there's a few more frames. Well, I'm talking film. So if it's a film, there's a few more frames of this. There's a shot, and in the movie there's this shot, and first there's the pool, and there's lots of noise, and there's all these lanes, and you've got the person that's the focus of the shot is in front of this one lane, and then you notice that all the other lanes go still, and all the noise recedes, and so all the busyness out here just kind of pauses, like they freeze framed, this part. And so what I could do is I could actually, because it was happening in a finger snap, I could actually add frames where I could inspect this really crystal clearness in front of me a bit longer and a bit longer. And as I kept doing that, it would switch. So everything else, so I was being able to look at the crystal clearness. That's how I walk through things. And that superficial stuff was something that would freeze. Does that make sense? So it would swap. Of course, from a being, walking through the world without that many other people doing that, it was a pretty lonely place to be. But.
It makes sense what you're describing. I've never had that myself specifically, but for me, I'm able to follow what it is that you're describing there.
Well, what I'm describing is what happened for me. The point of describing that, sharing that, is that something clicks open, just a way to say it, within you. And if you can hold that and notice it, is the best way to say it. you know, and at first you might go, huh, what was that? And then you go back to whatever. But letting yourself be drawn to something that catches your attention, or something that's just out of the groove of the rest of the stuff. It's almost like like a flint on a match. You know, you strike it, and that finger snap of what I'm describing would happen. And as I nurtured that spark, then now I was kindling a nice little fire that was going on. I could see, so it was lighting my way. Does that make sense? But it's something that happens within you on every of your body's levels. I'm describing specifically superpower.
No, I am totally following you, because I'm living that, actually, much actually on camera with your and Lisa's help. And so, yeah, I can see exactly the way you described that. There's been like this little spark, and I just am following it. Doesn't mean it happens overnight.
No.
By the way. And I think that there's been a propensity, proclivity, whatever, and we're all so excited, and a lot of things happen in different realms that seem like they're like right now, and you know, a lot of the channelings and stuff like that folks talk about. We all want it right now because it's so horrible here, you know, and all that kind of thing. But some of this just takes a little time for the unbinding and unwinding. For me, now I'm speaking only for myself, because I think I was actually just having a conversation with myself a little earlier today. It will happen for me in the moment that I am not only ready, but willing and ready for it just to take place. Everything will happen in that moment. And not a moment prior, by the way, I don't feel. So that's for me personally. Everyone's mileage may vary on that, but that's what I feel like. So yeah, it's sort of it's a process, and could be immediate. It's all in however we are.
Well, it's actually both simultaneously.
And I'm sorry, but I'm going to throw this in there, and neither simultaneously as well. That's for me, it can be, yeah, absolutely, because it's all a possibility. I'm sorry, Busy, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, oftentimes it's a process, and so you're continually expanding, right? And you're continually honing those frequencies that are, you go up a little with frequency. It's not correct, but you expand a bit with frequency of higher vibration, and then you come back down. You're breathing, right? And but so the reason that I say it's a process and it's instantaneous simultaneously is because you actually are changing. So you're never coming down like this. You're just, like breathing, you're keep going, and my hand is continually moving up. So the process, if I'm looking up here, that's the golden ring up there. Oh my God, it's taking forever to get up these stair steps, right? But at the same time, since I'm not plummeting back down, it's actually happening simultaneously because I'm changing. I am expanding. I am completely different than I was when I was down here.
Yeah.
So it's simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's a process, yes. From the perspective of, this is taking forever. Am I ever going to get there? Are we there yet? It's a process. It's a process, And simultaneously, it happens in a snap because if you actually paid attention, if you actually noticed in that moment when you went to this and you looked around and you could, like I was talking about, you could freeze frame it.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought, wow, something's different. It's, you know, whether you would describe it as things are clear or I can feel more, I see more, whatever it is. But since, again, we're, you know, the other simultaneousness is the process. We're looking up there and we're not there yet. So big whoop, you know.
or it could be like in my case, because I have got myself still doing this, is comparing myself to those around me and where they are in their process. That's another programmed, conditioned thing that I know that I am, you know, unbinding and unwinding. But it is something that I do still catch myself doing. Not as often, but I do still catch myself from time to time doing that.
When you catch yourself, what do you say? What do you notice? What do you do?
Oh, I see what you're doing there, and you are not them, and therefore knock that off. Actually, I a lot of times I catch myself before I ever say anything, or it's just a feeling, right? And then I'll ask myself, okay, wait a minute, where is that coming from, and why is that coming up? And oh, I know, because this one or that one. And most of the time, let's be clear. I'm talking about the two of you, because you two are pretty much all I got in my field for the most part. And so I am constantly comparing myself. I used to constantly compare myself. And I do still do that from time to time, but I forgive myself and I realize that I am on my own trajectory and schedule, and I will, I'm handling this in the way that I have apparently set it up to handle, in the way that I have set it up to handle. I really am coming into the trusting of that, which hasn't been easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
yeah.
Really,
go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say, for me, it really is just all about the trust. Because for me, what happened was, that moment for me too was like, wait a minute, you're saying this, but I see this. And I always wondered why everybody was okay with that.
They don't notice.
I couldn't figure that out. But really, people weren't allowing themselves to even entertain the thought that something was awry. I don't know. You have to be trusting enough of your own perception of a thing. For me, that's what it was. I realized that my perception was different than what was being told to me, or the mass hallucination. I don't know, but I felt like I was the odd man out, right? Because I could see things, you know, that I could see sometimes that the emperor was naked. Not that I could see through everything, but there were things that were just, you know, pretty obvious to me. And again, if you call people's attention to it, they'll deny it or be upset at you for how dare you speak that out loud or whatever. And at first, I let everybody else's opinion inform me. And then after a while, it felt really, really dishonoring of myself to do that anymore. Like you said, that visceral, really strong, I couldn't do it anymore kind of response to it. And after I just allowed myself to have a different perspective, that was a really big step for me, because that was like what you were talking about, nurturing that little flame. There was a little spark spark of truth revealing itself to me. And I just sat with it and just let it be and made peace with it just within myself. And the more that light, that little, bonfire of truth, the more that I tend to it, the more that, and how I tend to that is trust, is to trust that and allow it to lead. The more that it revealed to me, sort of in the timing that I was capable of handling it, because I took the time to nurture that truth in me and to know that was important. Because I know that a lot of times I was told what to focus on because this is important and this over there is not important. And playing is, there's a time for that, and now you should. And so when I allowed that to take precedence over my own truth of what's important to me in any moment, then I could see more was revealed to me by trusting that space. So I would just want to really stress how important it is to trust your own perceptions and to trust what you know, because that's really, to me, the first step. And then that snowballed. The more that I trust, the more I could see, and the more that I could see, the more that I can trust, and it just keeps that upward spiral progression of that stairs that BZ was talking about for me.
Well, you said something that lit up for me in that, and I wanted to point it out. And you said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but you said something in regards to the more that you trusted, and that it was revealed to you in the timing that you needed. And that right there has been huge. And like I said, am I comparing myself? Again, this is something that I've noticed over time, and I am getting way better in regards to that. I don't do it quite as much anymore. And for me, in what you just said, that is was a big part of it for me. Was coming now to know, not guess, not think, but know that the bigger me, the one that's actually running this show for me, because, the one in the chair, just not that swift at it quite yet. But I know that one is arranging things for me in the proper timing. And what I mean by that is that I'm trusting that now, where I didn't so much before. And it does seem that the more I do that, the more becomes revealed in that sort of way. And also the more I trust everything I get when I get it, up to and including the fact that we weren't going to be together last night. You didn't know that, BZ, but I knew that yesterday morning. And I told Lisa, I have this feeling it wasn't that I didn't want to, because I did, but I have this feeling all day that we were not going to be meeting last night for our conversation. And lo and behold, it didn't. I'm beginning to trust that now in myself, rather than to poo-poo it or to think, oh, well, that's a coincidence, or I'm not connected, or these sorts of things. So yeah, I wanted to just point that out, Lisa. It's not just the trust, but it's also, for me, it was very important for me to get to the point of trusting that I am exactly where I need to be at the moment that I am in this moment of now. And I think that is for all of us.
Yeah, especially if you're feeling uncomfortable with where you are.
Yeah. Well, that's where you're trusting there's a gift there and stuff. And I just wanted to go back for a minute, the idea of, comparing, and that's a recipe for disappointment. because
Yes, but now it's also something that's very clearly a program and conditioning too. And that's why I wanted to bring that up in that manner. Because we are taught to compare
oh
not
yeah, it's a
only
favorite. Yeah.
ourselves, but each
Well,
other
yeah, and to
at
covet and
every turn.
envy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because
Right.
because
At
that way
every
you have,
turn.
well, because that way you can have things dangled in front of you that are shiny on the programming. And even if you really never give a hair about that, but the way that it's done that way, then you want that because it's a good way to program you. But so as far as a superpower, when you are trusting and you're we'll say wrestling with the comparing part, because that's a favorite. That's a favorite, even if you're more on the expansive side of it, of well, it's exciting, or you can see someone talking about something and part of you goes, well, I got nothing. It's not happening. And what I wanted to bring up is that if you got what I have, whatever that thing was at that moment that you were comparing to me, and I don't have that, or Lisa or whoever, right? So, but you're you, and your journey, your prep, your fantastical abilities, all those kinds of things are unique and tailored to you. So if you had experience in them, let's just say, I'm just going to say, just so we get a placeholder. So this is what I was talking about. And you're like, well, I want that. I have an experience. Why not me? Okay. And so you have this conversation with yourself, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to, see if we can't resolve this comparing and sort of thing for a moment. And so you get this, and all of a sudden doesn't seem quite so shiny, and well, what the hell do I do with it? And it doesn't feel that good. It does. Now, why is it that I have this now, but this does not? It isn't. I saw Beezy, she was discussing this, and she was showing us this, and it had sparkle to it, and it had these things, and it was really cool. And now I haven't. What? Mine's broken. It's broken. It doesn't. Because right? I mean, I'm being silly, but I'm actually not being
No, it's really good.
Yes, I'm
really silly.
I'm laughing because it's a true one, actually.
Yeah, it has happened to me.
And so why is that? Now I can take this back and go, oh yeah, no problem. See, it works like this, and you do this and watch this, and you're like, because this was my toy, my path, my creation, right? My popped into physical matter because I was focusing on it and my trajectory. I gave it my attention and I trusted myself with that, and so I made it so. So I just want to kind of like illustrate that in a really silly way so that people can actually start to see now. Because yeah, I know everybody went, oh yeah, I've done that. We all have, because that comparing is a favorite thing. So what's interesting is when you I was going to say this before, it's a point of it's actually a point of expansion, although seems to be buried in kind of annoyance, when you notice something in someone else and you go, oh, that's cool, I want that, because if you can play with that, not the wanting and don't have, but the, oh yeah, see, look at that, right? If you can play with that, the energy of that, and laugh off, or whatever the, the I want but I don't have kind of a thing.
Right.
Now that's like a spark that you can fan and get to nurture that and grow bigger. And the other thing is that so often we're looking over there, like, hey, look at, it's all happening out there right now. We're all looking over there. Wait, this sucks. We want this. It's not happening. And why are people standing in my way of my thing? But they're not, because each one of us is standing in the way of whatever that purported thing is that we purportedly want. But we're too busy, not honoring us, trusting us, saying, hey, we're really doing a pretty good job right here so far. Yeah, that sucks and that's crappy and this is not so good, but wow, this was good and this was good, and I don't think so much of me sucks or life sucks as much as it used to. Maybe it's just kind of sucky and not whoa sucky. So, and in that moment, we that's where the process, are we ever going to get there? And instantaneous, the same, that it's simultaneous.
Right.
So we hold the key to igniting, unfurling, beefing up, putting on a show with the superpower of, breaking the chains, kind of filtering through all of the programming conditioning. We hold the key to the success of that, or the continually smacking our head against that programming conditioning, those limits, that so-and-so won't let me have this. They're doing this to me. The school, the judge, the bank, the right?
Yep.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of that still out there, of course. And it's all, well, I won't say it's always going to be there, because I don't feel like that's a true statement at all anymore. But
no, not for long.
However, it became clear for me, that I am the one in charge of my interaction with all of that, or not. And okay, so step one for me in the realizing of my superpower of throwing off programming and conditioning, step one, the very, very first step, is, for me, of course, just like in every other thing, is realizing that I was programmed and conditioned to begin with. That's always the first step. The very first step is admitting there's a problem.
Yeah, you cannot change what you do not acknowledge.
No, that's right. If you're walking around thinking, well, I'm not programmed, well, that's the first. Okay. For me, it was. And then secondly, I have to say, not just being open to looking at my actions, my reactions, my encounters, my just everything, doesn't even really matter what it is. But well, okay, so it keeps coming up. The 3 times it came up in my head to say, ruthlessly looking at everything in regards to myself, everything. And I say ruthlessly because, yeah, that's a real thing. For me, doesn't necessarily mean that's for everyone, but for me, that was very helpful and is very helpful. sometimes I get a little concerned that I'm overdoing it. So that I overanalyze myself even. But it's okay because I'm finding all kinds of things that I never expected to find and resolve within myself. And so for me, those are actually tools in regards to how to go about throwing off my programming and conditioning. So I guess that's part of that superpower too. You have to be willing to look at every single thing, every action and reaction. Actually, sometimes it's just an action. It's not necessarily a reaction. It could be an action that one takes. That because I have done, just done something and then look back on it and like, okay, now wait a minute. Why did I do that? What was that about? Because it could have turned out well, or maybe it didn't turn out. So it might have turned out well as far as what I was trying to accomplish for folks, but then I end up unhappy at the end of it. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What the hell did I just do? And why? So for me, that's part of that. I felt led to share that because it came up quite a bit during this conversation for me.
For me, I would say that noticing when I hold it differently now than I did back when I first started noticing, but notice that what I know, what I have a sense of, what I have a knowing of, what I have an inkling of, what I have a wee little tip off of is different than out there. Okay, then play with that. Trust that and play with that. It may lead you into, wonderful unravelings, or it may be just the sun came out over there, and so I would do that. The other thing I would say is be fierce about feeling into the difference between an intellectual exercise and actually honoring that knowing. Because it's one thing to go, oh well, I'm a truther, and I I think Q's the bomb, and I'm using words I don't usually use, but and all this kind of stuff. And well, shit, the midterms happened and we lost the house. Well, that Q's an idiot. That's an intellectual exercise as opposed to a knowing, because the Q, the this, the that, whoever it is, whatever it is, however it shows up, is just, if you're on an intellectual exercise about it and not a knowing and not an honoring and not a trusting, and that blooming of that superpower coming on within you, then it's just another form of programming and conditioning, because you're giving your power away again. Because when it's not an intellectual exercise, when it's a knowing, it doesn't matter what happens out there, what someone says, what happens, you have that knowing. You may go, well, okay, I thought it was going to go like this or go like that or go like that, but no, I'm not giving up on that. It's not giving up is the right word, but people say, well, you need to move on or whatever. No, because I know this is so. So what I'm saying is be fierce about taking it from an intellectual exercise to that knowing, that honoring of that knowing. And the last part, this is really condensed, is just to laugh, because there's such delicious chuckles and irony and jokes from you to you and vice versa as you move through this, that and when you really hone in on that conversation. I mean, there is much hilarity and much fun, and it's all done in a loving way, but occasionally there is a little bit of, more human, esqueness to the irony and the humor, coming from my soul, where it's that's a way to just kind of nudge me, like, you're kidding, right? You're kidding on this, right? Kind of a thing. And so consequently, I will spend, because of that humor, because of that wonderful relationship and love, I'll spend a lot of time throughout any given day where I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and all of a sudden I will just bust out laughing. And, I don't necessarily have the most quiet laugh around. And so, around where I work, you can hear off in the hills or down the road or over in that valley or down that building or over here.
Which is nice.
And I think people used to think, well, there must have been someone there and, they're having a joke. And no, there's actually, in theory, there's nobody there but her. It's just a big crowded room with all the hers that are there, So I would say that would be an excellent component to weave into that mix of tools.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of laughter around up in here.
Yeah. Life is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
So have fun. I look for the funny. I really do.
Which is good. Because
I'm going to tell you this. And I really believe this. This is true for me. I have saved my life on more than one occasion by laughing. I was very, very close to death, but I found it so simply hilarious.
Yes.
that I just laughed myself right out of the crisis. It's real. It does. It does. It takes my every cell and rises it so quickly, and it's so much fun. I mean, who doesn't love to laugh?
Yeah.
I really have to say, trust yourself and have fun. Laugh at yourself. I mean, it's really, really, really funny. Being human is hilarious. This human body is so deliciously funny. I don't know. I'm just so grateful to be here because it is so deliciously fun.
And the as you're walking around out here and what you encounter and the things that people kind of come up with, and I'm glad you said that, Lisa, about how on the hard thing, because I was going to say it's important. A lot of the times I'm laughing when someone could even say, that's not funny. Yeah, it's really funny. Can't you? No, that's painful. No, that's really hysterical, actually. I could break it down for someone and I have before, and they'd go, okay, you're weird. So tell me why that's funny. And I can't think of an example right now, but it happened just the other day. And so I explained the joke the way I said, and the other person was in and said, that's pretty damn funny. I said, yes, what I'm saying, because it's a way to help you let go of the vice grip lock on your perception at that moment, which is so tight and so small, and so you're just gnashing your teeth on that. And if you just shift it just a smidge, barely a smidge, you can really see the humor in it. And then you're off and running, because when you're laughing at that, then these other awarenesses come into play, or these other ways of looking at things, or these other jokes come in, and you can see it. And Lisa's right. You've moved way off the precipice of the cliff there that you were about to go over, and it's changed everything.
Well, now as far as the humor is concerned, part of, I think, for me, what I've experienced in regards to what you were describing, VZ, as you're explaining it to someone. A lot of times they can't see the humor. I think part of it for me was the thing that's the most deliciously funny is all of us wandering around here thinking that this is the only chance we got. That's why it's got to be so goddamn serious and except it's hysterically funny when you find out that no, not at all. As a matter of fact, you really truly are an eternal being, and this is just one gig. And that actually in and of itself, when you think about how freaking serious we're all walking around here taking this whole gig, that in and of itself is kind of hysterical to me. When you stop, because that takes a hell of a lot of pressure off, for one thing.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so just coming to that. Just coming to that. Yeah. Well, this has really been a great conversation. Do either one of you have anything you want to add to this one, or?
I would say it's just one of many of your superpowers. And, you know, this one shifts your whole out there as you bring it online. So, you know, get to work.
Lisa, you?
I would just say trust what you get. Just trust you and who you are. This is what I'm doing. This is my advice to me. Trust it all, everything that comes from within. Enjoy it. It's such a fun ride. I'm having just too much fun. And I have to say that today was kind of a weird day for me. It just, I don't even know why, because I couldn't tell you, well, this happened. And then when that happened, I was so upset because nothing happened. It was just the same day as yesterday and the day before. And yesterday and the day before, I felt delicious. And today, a little sad and not quite sure even why. And then I kind of wondered, well, is that normal? Is that weird? And tried to beat myself up for it. And now I'm just trusting that whatever is flowing through me is meant to flow through me. And I'm going to just hang on to everything that is of love, and everything else I'm letting go. And I'm just trusting that my heart knows the way. And so that's my advice. Trust your heart because it knows the way.
Yeah.
Well, I love all of this conversation, and I will say that for myself. Trusting has been the biggest thing.
And so thank you, ladies, for showing up, because all my sadness evaporated the minute we started doing all of it.
Well, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much. And we will have, of course, all the usual things and all the usual places to get in touch with anyone and everyone in the event that you'd like to. And I'd like to ask folks to, chime in, comment. What do you think of this particular conversation? What do you notice for yourself in regards to how you are noticing your programming and conditioning, how you are, trusting yourself? What are some of your own techniques that you'd like to share for all of us? I would love to hear from folks. And if you don't feel comfortable commenting in the comment section, of course, you can reach out to any one of us through the information contained within the Show More section of this video. So thank you all. Thank you, the two of you. Till next time.
Much love.